Dunton Locks Pottery is located 2 miles south of Detroit Lakes, off Highway 59 by Dunton Locks Park. Open daily, 11 to 4.
For a closer look at Phil Holton's wood turning, call 346-3860.
The Glass Lady Studio is located in Lake Park, Minnesota at 403 Lake Street. If you'd like more information on classes or custom work, you can give us a call at 218-234-8844. Today we're going to talk about a stained glass ornament class that we have coming up at the Glass Lady Studio. This is the Valentine season is upon us, and this is a heart sun catcher that takes a little bit of some of the fear and pressure out of creating a stained glass object, because when you come to class, you will have your pieces already cut and ground for you. So you're just going to go through the finishing steps of foiling and soldering. I left this piece out to show you because this foil is a little bit different than what you've maybe seen in some of the other shows that we've done. This is a wave foil, and it has that scalloped edge on it, which is appropriate for certain things, hearts being one of them. It makes them look a little bit maybe more frilly or girly. Obviously, if you were doing it for a man, you might want to choose just the regular straight foil. So once again, to foil, we just go all the way around the edge of our piece, overlap it a tiny bit. This just tears. And then you go down and crimp it all the way around. This step when doing stained glass, whether it be an ornament or a panel, is actually one of the most important steps, and it's really overlooked because it seems so simple. But if you don't get that foil down tight and properly, what happens is the flux, which is kind of an acid of sorts, eats away underneath it, and your joint will actually peel up. Also, the solder only sticks where the foil is. This is called burnishing when you go around the edges and really getting a tight seal. But the solder only sticks to your piece where that foil is. So if you don't have it foiled securely, tightly, evenly, which actually I'm off a little bit, you might be able to see that. You can actually see the behind there, but for time I'm just going to keep going. If it's not even, you will notice that in your final piece. So it's really one of the most important steps. So then the next step you would move to is soldering. This is, all the basic steps are the same, no matter if you're making a sun catcher or a panel or a large piece, it's all the same steps. So this takes a little bit of the fear, I guess you would call it, for adults usually, out of it. Refresher, the first step we do is we just tack it together. I put my flux on with my little paintbrush there, and you go along and tack that seam, and then you can go right to the next step actually of doing the finished solder. Basically 2 seams to this heart. And then even though this foil happens to be the silver color, you still want to take and go around your edges with solder. Solder will eventually kind of color to a grayish color over time. So if you didn't have that, and plus you're going to want to do your puff seams on the edges to give it that finished look. If you are shopping in the major retail stores, the big box stores, if you will, you'll see a lot of stained glass garden ornaments or just little sun catchers. The step that doesn't happen with those is really the finished solder part. So then I would do the same thing on the back, do my finished solder seam. Go around the edge. The one thing everybody thinks, oh, sun catchers are so easy because they're so little. Actually, they are a little bit harder. I would rather do a large project any day than the smaller ones. You kind of have to fuss with them a little bit more. Kind of like if you make cupcakes, you got to frost everyone individually and put a little more time into it. If you make one cake, it's frost the whole thing at once. So you go around the edge. And then, as I talked about that puff solder, You can see right now some of it's maybe dripped over the edge. It's not very clean looking. And here's the part where when you're dealing with sun catchers, it gets a little bit harder because you're obviously dealing with hot solder, and yet it's a slow process, and the heat transfers through the glass. So it's a fine balancing act of trying to accomplish the mission and not burning your fingers. A pair of pliers helps too. Just keep working around that edge, trying to keep the part wherever you're working level because it will run. I'll show you here. If you put some on and it's at too much of an angle, it just starts to run down, goes down the back. So you want to keep it as straight as you can, working slowly as you go. This material that I'm soldering on is called Homasote, and it does have it's fire and flame retardant, so you don't have to worry about it catching on fire if you lay your iron down for a minute or two. You can see the burn marks on the table. That might be from being an iron being set down or the solder going through if you have left your iron in the same spot too long on your piece. I'll finish up this side and then I'm going to move on because I want to show you how to attach the hanger and to embellish it. You can solder to several different types of metals, zinc, copper, brass. So when you get to little sun catchers with little adornments, it's fun to go to the local hobby store or craft store and just kind of see what they have. Sometimes you can find some real treasures to incorporate into glass pieces. So this is just a zinc-coated copper wire that I took and twisted around a pen to make the circle. You can buy them pre-done, but of course they are a little more expensive. I always try to get my opening where the pieces meet to be down in the solder seam. Otherwise, if you don't do that, sometimes when it's hanging, it can pull that apart and you'll lose your piece from the window. That's how you adorn that. And then the front part, I chose a little bow. On our finished project, I have a little cherub that I'll show you. Now this is actually a cast lead, and these are a little bit tricky because, spilled my flex, can't get through a soldering session without spilling the flex. The reason they're tricky is because they're cast lead, so they're essentially just a little bit harder version of what you're using to solder with. So if you hold your iron too long on them, they will melt. So that is a completed piece, not clean, but that's a completed ornament. And that would be what you would make if you were to sign up for the stained glass heart ornament class. The Glass Lady Studio is located in Lake Park, Minnesota at 403 Lake Street. If you'd like more information on classes or custom work, you can give us a call at 218-234-8844.